Hi there and welcome back. This week we are going to continue plasterboarding, and in the second part of the video I'm going to tell you the entire story why I stopped renovating this tiny house and what has changed now so that I can continue working on it. So without further ado, let's get started. We are in the living room again, and as you all know, this wall is already done. It's finished. Now we are going to start with this wall, and this is a little bit more complicated because we have here the breaker box, we have quite a lot of cables to hide, we have plug sockets and two windows, and this means quite a lot of cutting. I often read the question in your comments, why don't you put insulation under the plasterboard? The answer is quite easy, because there is already 12 cm of insulating material inside this wall. 6 cm of styrofoam inside these panels and another 6 cm that I put inside the facade from the outside. That's almost 5 inches of insulation. So this substructure that I built is just to hide the cables and to even out the plasterboard. So the wall is ready for plasterboarding. I installed all the battens that we need as a substructure, and I removed all this metal brackets that were there because of this wooden paneling that used to be here before. The only reason why I'm struggling a bit is Laszlo already installed these plastic, don't know what it's called, for the plug sockets, and cutting the holes into my plasterboard to meet exactly this point where he installed these plastic thingies is quite tricky. So I think I'm going to remove these plastic thingies. Leave me a comment if you can tell me what are these things here called. What's their name? I don't know, to be honest. Plastic thingies. So what I wanted to say was, do I remove them, hang the plasterboard and install them later on? Because it's much easier to drill a hole into my plasterboard wherever I want. Or do I leave them here and try to meet exactly the point where these plastic thingies are? Yeah, it's a little bit trial and error. So without any further ado, let's continue. While editing, I always hate watching myself making these stupid faces. So this is the first board, and as I said in my last video, it's always important to get the first board straight. So measurement is key, and it's absolutely not straight. So we have to wiggle a little bit into this direction, and that's better, but not good. So yeah, that should do. And it's always coming handy when you have your tools next to you. So let's double check. Yeah, brilliant. And it's always coming handy when you can remember where exactly your substructure is, so that you really hit the substructure and not a cable or anything. But I think I will. Yeah. As well, in my last video I mentioned that I put these plasterboards directly on the floor and that I don't leave this little gap that you usually do. And there were comments asking, okay, but what about moisture? What about a vapor barrier between the concrete and the plasterboard? And here in Germany it is quite common that you have a vapor barrier under the concrete, then comes a layer of concrete, then comes another vapor barrier, and on top of this a special mixture of concrete, screed floor I think it's called. So when all the walls are standing, then you pour another level of a certain concrete mixture. In German it's called Estrich. I think it's screed floor in English. And this is exactly the same, the case here in this house as well. So we actually have two vapor barriers, and therefore moisture or upcoming moisture shouldn't be a problem. But I shouldn't talk too much and continue working, because otherwise I won't get ready. And I definitely want to jump into the lake today. It's 34 degrees as well. Here in the house it is quite cool. Outside it's terrible. But stop talking, start working. And remember where your sleds are. Yeah. Note to myself, more sports in the future. That's what 34 degrees look like in our area while I'm working. So I finished the wall off camera, and believe me, I spared you quite a lot of swear words and strong language because it was tricky. It was a lot of cutting and measurements and this stupid sockets here. So it's done now, and believe me, now I jump into the lake. And this is the best and most often walked route this week. What a view! So, welcome to the second part of the video with answers to your most asked question. André, why did you stop renovating the tiny house? Why did you all of a sudden disappear? And yes, let me try to answer this question. Believe it or not, the entire story starts in 1988, because that was exactly the year when our little community was built. And back then, this area here belonged to the eastern part of Germany. Back then, we had two different Germanys. We had the western part, which was the Federal Republic of Germany, and the eastern part, which was the GDR, or the German Democratic Republic. The GDR belonging more or less to the Soviet Union. Of course, it was a state on its own, but it politically belonged to the eastern part of the world. And the Federal Republic of Germany oriented to the western part of the world. Back then it was possible, or you were able to build your house on plots of land that are not yours. So back then they built this little community and they just rented this land. So it was lease land, and it still is. And 2 years later, we had the reunification of the two Germanys, and the eastern part of Germany had its own law system in a way. So as I said, in East Germany it was possible, it was able to build your house on land that's not yours. And in West Germany this wasn't possible. And therefore they had to join the two different law systems somehow. And that's when they created and here comes a German word, the Schuldrechtsanpassungsgesetz, which is one word, by the way. And this Schuldrechtsanpassungsgesetz meant that for the first 10 years after the reunification, so from 1990 to 2000, nothing changed. So when you had your house on a land that's not yours, you just continue paying your rent, and that's it. And for the next 20 years, when you leave the house, or when you end this contract, or when somebody passes away, you have to clear the land. So you have to remove all your buildings from this land, and you have to give the land back to the owners, but completely cleared. And then they said, okay, after 30 years, which was the third phase of the Schuldrechtsanpassungsgesetz, all the buildings that are on other people's land belong to the owners of the land. Back then, when we bought our house, 15 years ago or something like this, the first house, nothing changed. So we just paid the do you pay the lease or the rent? I don't know. So we paid every year for the land, and we bought the house from the previous owner. And when we decided to sell everything and to move, we put our first house, the bigger house, on the internet, saying, hey, this house is for sale and it's lease land, but you buy the house and you have a contract here with the city, and you just pay your yearly fee, and that's it. And then all of a sudden, I received an email saying, hello, we saw on the internet that you are planning to sell the house. Let me just tell you that this house is not yours anymore because of the Schuldrechtsanpassungsgesetz. Since 2020, this house belongs to us, to the city administration, because the land belongs to the city administration. And of course, we had quite a big trouble here in the entire community, because this meant that everybody was all of a sudden just a tenant in their own house. And this is exactly what we told them, what we told the city administration. And we just said, okay, when we all of a sudden are your tenants now, you can be sure that we are going to call for each and every problem that we are going to have. We are calling for every dripping water tap in the bathroom. In this case, you have to know that Germany is very, very renter-friendly. So in Germany, I think 60% of the people in Germany live in rented accommodation. For historical reasons, after World War, they built many rental properties and stuff like this. So therefore, the law here is very renter-friendly, and as a renter in Germany, you are more or less a customer of your landlord. So this means you have quite a lot of rights as a tenant because you pay. And that was exactly our position, and we just said, okay, when we are tenants now, you are the landlord and you are the one in charge for everything. And that's when the city administration actually thought twice, so that maybe it's not a good idea to become a landlord as a city administration, because that's not their job. And so after quite a longer discussion, they offered us the land to buy each plot. And they offered us this land for a very, very fair price, we have to say. And the entire negotiations were very fair and clear. So this was really nice. So right now everything is nice, everything is fine. And actually, I think 4 weeks ago we signed the contract. So since 4 weeks now, we are the owners of our land and our houses. Both things in one hand. And that's exactly the reason why now I can continue working. Because back then, when I received this email saying, okay, this house is not yours anymore, of course, I immediately stopped putting more money into this house that's not mine anymore. So why should I continue renovating a house that belongs to somebody else? And right now it is our house and our land, And that's why we can continue renovating the house, and that's why we will continue renovating the house. Nevertheless, in I think 3 years' time, due to other legal reasons, we are planning to sell it. But right now we are still here and we are still renovating the house, and we are still enjoying the lake, if there is no boat on the lake like right now. And yes, that's the entire story. That's the reason why I stopped renovating, and that's the reason why now I continue renovating the tiny house in the little corner of the world. That's it for this week. See you all next week. Until then, stay safe and stay healthy.